Welcome back, everybody. We are working on the game. We're working on getting to an end state of this game so I can move along and come up with new tutorials. And so at this point, what I've done is I've prepared this room. What I want to do is create a title room. But then I realized that I'm using the trial edition and I only get 5 rooms. That's it, 5 rooms. I already got 3. Haven't really developed them, but I want to know I can have, as many rooms as I can have. So if I were to do a start room and then a game over room, well, then that's kind of a waste of rooms. I could have an entire game room if I just have one. And so what we're going to do is it's probably going to take a couple video tutorials, but I'm going to focus on having one room that can serve as the title room. It could serve as the game over room, and it could even serve as a high scores table room. So we're going to do all that. We are going to have to do some code refactoring, and what that means is we're going to have to redo some of the way we think the code. If you look at this room, you might notice there's some oddities there. What I've done is I've figured out, basically I want to take a picture of the game as it's being played and use it and modify it for basically being the title room background image. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to organize this. I'm going to take a screen capture. I want to get the same general overall dimensions, and then we're going to do some editing with that, and then we're going to put it into a room and start working with some things called states. So let's go ahead and get to that. First thing is set up the room. I've moved my player here so I can have it, where some of this action is going to be. And then you can kind of see the border of the blocks. This will get us the same width and height overall, constraint. So that if I take a picture that includes all of those blocks in that rectangle, it should be able to stretch really well to the rooms that we are doing. In order to do this, though, I'm going to go to the viewport, and I'm going to uncheck the enable viewports. And I'm going to get my snipping tool open. And then let's go ahead. I got the snipping tool ready. Let's go ahead and run this. And it should go into this room, and I should be right sort of in the center. And I might be sharing it with some other, skeletons. And I am. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the snipping and create a new snip. Like I said, I want to kind of capture all of that right there. And there we have it. So I'm going to take that. There's an embedded skeleton. He's embedded into the wall. I'm going to leave it there because honestly, that's okay. I'm going to save this image, and we're just going to call it capture. Yes, the aptly named capture because it is an image capture. I can close this. By the way, I did it full screen partly because I wanted to avoid having the high scores or the score and the health bar and the lives there. So that's one of the things I was doing. All right, so I've got that. We're going to go online and use a tool called Pixlr. If you have Photoshop or some other tool you want to use, go for it. So I start by going to pixlr.com, and I'm going to open Pixlr Editor. That's the one I like to use. And I'm going to continue with this. Oh, I need to allow Flash. Yeah, it's kind of lame. Maybe that's what they're changing on there. So I'm going to get an image from the computer. That's under Pictures Capture. And there it is. So we have the image. And let's get this a little bit bigger, and we'll zoom in on here. And we'll do show all. There we go. Nice and big. All right, so we are going to crop this just a little bit. And so I'm going to use the crop tool and try to get it just around everything. And just shave off just a little bit here and there. Little off the bottom, little off the top. And that should be good. Right about there. Yeah, then hit enter. So you draw it, you hit it. Okay, so I didn't seem to trim off what I wanted to. That's okay. That's fine. The main thing I want to do is make sure that this has like a consistent darkness or brightness to the background so I can display text over it without it looking weird. So I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to Adjustments. And the first thing I'm going to do is play around with brightness and contrast. That's probably the easiest way. So you're going to make it really dark. It looks kind of interesting when you do that, right? It looks a little bit haunting. And you can play around with contrast too. So you can bring it up, dial it back, whatever you do here. So not as much contrast between one color and the next. And so it's up to you what you want to do. So that's one thing you could do. Give it that faint background. You can also play around with some filters and just see if you have some filters that you like. And so I'm just going to play around with a few, and I'll see if there's any that I recommend. Vignette is kind of a nice one there. I think I might use something like that. And you can play around with the size. You can play around with the color. It's in the background. Not that I recommend you do that, but you could. And I'm going to try maybe that. And then there's just a couple others. I'll let you sort of play around and do the night vision. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff you can mess around with there. And I'll let you kind of play around with those. All right. I think I might do a little bit of night vision. And anyways, I could play with this for a long time. So I'm just going to go ahead. Do the night vision, call it good, and then what we'll do is gain noise. Okay, maybe not. Well, we'll do that for now. You play around with it, whatever you want to do. Okay, now I'm going to do file. I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to save this, and we'll just call this main room background or title room background. Give it a name. I would make it the PNG and just click OK. Now we're going to want to, it's probably going to be best if you save it in the same folder where your project is. Be easier to find. So if I could find out where I put it, I'm just going to drop it under pictures and I'll find it elsewhere. So title room background, click save. And I'm done here. So I'm going to go back to Game Maker. And I need to make that a sprite. So I'm going to choose Create Sprite from Image. And I already have some other attempts that I had done, if you're looking at that, wondering what's going on. And title room background. And I'm going to click OK. And then we'll call this Sprite Title BG. And we're just going to click OK. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm going to go to, now I'm going to create a room for this. So we're going to create a new room, and I'm just going to call it room title, because I'm really running out of creative names for these things. And then let's go ahead and add the background. So we're going to choose background layer, and we're going to take the sprite title BG, and we're going to click stretch. We'll stretch it out, and it'll look something like this. Okay. So you play around with whatever filters, whatever you want. Make sure you put it on the background. And we have room title. We're going to move this up to the top. And now here comes the interesting part. So what we want to do is we want to be able to display the name of the game when it's the beginning. But we also want to have it display game over when the game is over. And so for that, we're going to create an object. Now, we could go in and we could modify the game controller. But I'm thinking we have enough extra space, so I'm just going to create a new object. And we're going to call it object game state. All right, this was going to track the state of the game. And as I said, it's going to determine whether it's the beginning of the game, the end of the game, etc. And all right, so we've put this in room title, and I've moved room title to the top. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to add a special event. What we're going to do is we're going to give it a variable to track the state. We're going to call it state. And we want to make it so that at the beginning of the game, we display all the title information like we just begun. So that's going to be sort of the starting state of things. And so the best way to do that is to use the game start event. It's under other, and it's game start. Now be really careful about this, because this particular event, if you're going to use it, you have to have your object in a room and have it existing when that game begins. If you don't, it doesn't work. So be careful about this particular one, okay? And I'm going to just sort of double click on here. We're going to execute code. Let's hide that. Now let's go ahead and hide this. And then when we execute code, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to enter the game state. And so we're going to create the variable now, state equals start. The game state is start. And this variable is going to track what's going on in the game. And so we're going to have the starting game state. We're going to have it when we're playing the game. It'll be called the game state. And then we're going to have the game over state. And then we're going to have a high scores state where we can display the high score for that game. So this should really help us wrap up this particular game once we get everything working. Now, in order to test this out, we're going to display some text, but we need to do it on Draw GUI. And we need to make sure we put it in room title. So let's go ahead and put it in room title before we forget. Make sure you select instances, and then drag out the object game state and just drop it wherever. Okay, don't worry about where it is. We can adjust the text based on our code. We don't need anything else for that. So it's now in the room. So let's add a Draw GUI and let's write some information. And we're only going to base it on whether the state is set to start or not. So we're going to add a new event, which is Draw GUI. And let's just do a simple draw text here. And it's just draw text, I believe. Yeah, draw text. And we're going to give it a value. We're going to do, for example, 100 on the X and 100 on the Y, and say game title goes here. And then we'll do that. Let's just go ahead and test it out and see if it works. So we dropped it in there. It should be in there, and we should see the title. We did that, that's good. There it is. Okay, so pretty boring as far as fonts go. And I'd like to be able to center my title. So let's play around a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're going to set the font. Okay, so we need to go to our fonts. And right now we have the font for our HUD. And that looks good for a HUD, but we need something a little bit more dramatic for our title. So let's create one more font, and we'll call it font title. Or font titles, because we're going to use it for various titles. And then for this one, first of all, we want to go big. Just put it in here. Let's try like 42. The answer to life, the universe, and everything. And then we want to find a good font. So this is going to take some experimentation, and I'd like you to sort of figure out what you want to do, but I'll come up with something that I like in just a moment. Okay, I'm going to settle on Bookman Old Style here. And so you can set the font. You can some of the fonts let you do bold or not. I'm not sure if I like bold, but we're going to test it out. I do have a title for the game, and there's a lot of things you can do to come up with titles. My recommendation is you pattern it after another title. So I think about the movie, which is actually, funny enough, my least favorite of all Indiana Jones movies was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But it's still a great title, so I'm going to basically riff off of that one in my title. Now I've got my font set. This is font titles. So I'm going to go back to my object, which is the game state object, and we're going to set the font and do some other stuff here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is set the title fonts. And that would be draw set font. And that would be font titles, like so. Okay. And then the other thing we're going to do is I like to center it, so I'm going to center it. So I'm going to do this thing called draw set, and it's called H align for horizontal alignment. And for whatever reason, you begin with FA, and you do an underscore, and we're going to center it. FA center. Okay, now we're going to do this no matter what. Whatever the game state is, we're going to set it here. And then if that changes, we might change it. Well, I'll explain in a moment. First thing we want to do is check the game state. If state is equal to start. Okay, if it's equal to start, then we're in the starting room. the title room. Okay. And so once we're in the title room, what we're going to do is let's go ahead and set the title. And here we go. Arizona Smith. And the Lost Amulet of Onat. Yeah, I got that from online fantasy title generators. So there's our title. I like to set the variable, and then we're going to try an interesting draw text color. This is kind of a fun one. I like this one. Draw text color. The draw text color allows you to actually do gradients. Now let me zoom in on this so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. That should work. Okay, so on draw text color, I'm going to give it some arguments, and I'm going to use the little hints down here, X and Y. Okay, so first of all, X is the horizontal alignment, and we want to be dead center because we centered the text. So 1024 was the width of the full screen, so half of that is 512. And let's drop this down around 80 pixels down, and then we're going to put our title here. And now the fun part is we're going to give it 4 different colors. This will set gradients. And we're going to use the color here. We're going to try a C underscore red, C underscore red, and then a C underscore maroon, and another C maroon. And now I'm running out of room. Speaking of maroon, never mind. Okay, that was pretty bad. And let's give ourselves a little extra room for maroon. Okay, I'm sorry. I need more sleep. And then the last thing is this thing called alpha. We're going to give it a number of 1, which means 100%. We can see it. Let's test this out now and see if that looks good. Oh, title goes here. Oh, right. I never got rid of the title goes here. I probably need to do that. So let's go ahead and close it. And you can see the gradient, and that's too big. The title's not too big, but I think what we want to do is let's change this to the ampersand, or insert it in the middle. And we're going to do a \n for a new line. And then we're going to get rid of this draw text here because we don't need that anymore. And let's run it one more time and see how that looks with just one title. Cool. Now, if I could change the font size here or there, I would totally do it, but I can't. It's just not going to let me do that. So now you can change your font, play around with it. I'm going to leave it as is. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to draw. I'm going to add one more piece that I think you should draw is the draw the game objectives. And how to start playing. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a keyboard event. You're going to hit enter, and that will start the game. Okay, so on here, we're going to have instructions. Game instructions go here. I'll let you determine what those game instructions are. And then I'm going to do this little cool thing here. It's going to instructions. I'm going to do the plus equal. And what this is going to do is on a new line, it's going to add more text. So I'm going to put in my quotes, another \n, \n. We're going to do 2 of those. It's 2 line returns. And then we're going to put press enter to begin. Or to play, whatever. Now, we have our game objectives. What we want to do now is draw it in the other font. So we're going to do the draw set font. This time it's going to be font main, right? I believe it was. No, font underscore. Now we can just find the variable that we created. Type HUD. Font HUD. We set it there. We need to set the H align too. To FA left. Okay. Now we're going to draw text color. Or just draw text. Not test text. This will be a little bit easier. So then we're going to put an X and a Y. Okay, so now we need to drop down a bit. Let's try about 250 pixels down. I don't know if that's enough. And then we're going to put like 100, and then we'll put instructions like so. Well, let's go ahead and see if this works. Okay, I need to move it a lot further down and not so far to the left. And in fact, I did the wrong thing here. I should have made that 100 and this be 250. I'll try 350 just to be safe. And then these are numbers you're going to have to play around with and figure out what you want to do. So that could go up higher. So whatever. Okay. So we'll try 250 and then just fiddle around until we think we got it. That should be okay because we're going to need room to add more game instructions. That might be a couple paragraphs, so it's just up to that. We do have that press enter to play, so everything's working here right now. Now, we have this if state is equal to start. And the reason why we're doing that is that we only want to display this information when we're in the title room and it's the beginning of the game. Because when it's the end of the game, we're coming back to that room, but we want it to say something else. So we're going to check for that in a moment. But let's talk a little bit about game state. And actually, let's get it so we can get into the next room. So I'm going to go over here, and we're in room title. And oh, right. Go back to the object. We want to add the event, which is step. So in the step event, now, by the way, oh, here's another thing. Your object, make sure you make it persistent, because this needs to exist throughout the entire duration of the game. And the reason why is that it's going to be tracking the game state. When the game is over, we need to know that. It could end in any one of the rooms, so it needs to be in all of the rooms. So it begins in the first room, it stays throughout. So we make it persistent. Now, on the step event, we're going to execute code. So while we're going through this, what we want to do is we're also going to check to see, oh, yeah. All right, so we're going to check to see if the state is equal to start. And then if it is, we're going to check the keyboard event, the key press event. And so we do this little if, and it's keyboard check. I'm going to do check released key, so it's when we let go of the key. And VK is what we begin our variables for the keyboard. And then it's going to be enter, VK enter. So we hit the enter key. And we also need another parenthesis because that's part of the first one is for the if. Second opening one is for the function keyboard check release. So we got to close the function and then close the if check. Then we can add our curly brackets. And if that is the case, we're going to do the room go to next. But here's going to be an important piece. We're now going to begin playing. So we're going to change the state right here. State is equal to game. So we're going to be in the game state once we do that. And it didn't like, oh, I put is equal to. I just need one equal sign there. All right, so if we go there, it's going to change the state. What we're going to do is I'm going to toggle a breakpoint here, and let's test this dude out and see if it works and see if we can see the state changing. So notice how I ran it. I toggled the breakpoint and I ran that, and bam, here we are. State is equal to start, and we're going to kind of cycle through. And we're going to check the keyboard. Nothing's happening, so we're drawing all of this stuff. You see how that's working? All right, now we're checking this again. Okay, so now we're going to go over here, and I'm going to hit enter. Actually, I think I need to play it. This is fun. I'm going to play switch and get in there right away because this is the step event, and I don't even know if this is going to work. Okay, so let's do this. Let's try to, we'll check this particular one here. We're going to put it right in here instead. That's what I should have done. Okay, there we are. See, it says room go to next. So I'm going to type F11. I'm going to be in here, F11. State equals game. All right, let's take a look at our variables here. and it's going to be under variables or instances, variables, self. Yeah, state is equal to start. There's our title. There's our instructions. And then I'm going to go in here and type F11 again. And now we've changed the state. So if I go into instances, and I should see the game state, state is equal to game. So now we're in the game. And then we should be going into the next room, and I'll just click play, and there we are. We're in the next room. Oh my goodness, look what happened to the font here. It's really large. So this has to do with game state, right? So one of the things we're going to need to do is our game controller. We're going to need to do some serious changes to it. Stay tuned for the next video because I'm going to have to wait. We're already 25 minutes in. So on the next tutorial, we'll start really playing around with this game state and get this thing working just right. It will involve some serious coding, but it's going to be worth it. So stay tuned for that, and thank you so much for watching.